Hi, welcome to the podcast. I am Joe Posnanski, and with me is Michael Schur. Michael, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
You are very welcome. A lot to get to today in the podcast.
Sure.
Lots and lots of nonsense to get to in the podcast. But before we get to anything, do you have a segment this week? Usually at this point, you bring in the Mike new segment. Is there a new Mike segment this week?
There is no new segment this week. I will only the closest. You know what? Screw it. Yeah, there's a new segment this week. It's called Mike Complains About College Sports.
There we go. I love it. Yeah, no, that is a good new segment.
Um, I'm hardly the first person to say this, but what are we doing?
What's happening here?
What are we doing?
No, I don't know.
As I understand it, and I did not watch this, but as I understand it, Cal played Stanford in the ACC tournament.
That's right. That is correct.
In your hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina.
In Charlotte,
Am I correct?
North Carolina. Yeah, I believe that's correct.
What are we doing? What are we doing? And look, I understand that these names of conferences have certain values in terms of like, first of all, contractually, they can't change them probably.
Yeah.
And there's like, if you suddenly call the ACC the America First Conference or whatever, no one would know what you're talking about. People wouldn't watch. I get it. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. But Cal and Stanford, as far as I know, are not located on the Atlantic coast.
They're not. Am I wrong? They're not. No, you were right about that.
I'm right. Yeah. Okay, I thought so. And when we are in a situation where Cal, Berkeley, and Stanford, which is located in Palo Alto, California, are playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference basketball tournament in Charlotte, North Carolina, we are through the looking glass, and everything needs to stop and be reset. We need to rename the conferences. We need to change everything. I know that there's the ACC signed a Scientology-esque $1 billion year contract with ESPN to be broadcast on that network, and they can't leave. They're trapped forever, and they're just screwed. But I find, and I don't know if I'm alone or whether this is a commonly held feeling, whatever interest I had in college sports, especially like college basketball tournaments, conference tournaments, is completely gone.
Yeah.
I could not care less. I don't even know. I don't know who's playing who and where and why and when. It's affected me in terms of also the upcoming March Madness tournament. I don't know who's good and who's not. I don't pay attention. In this crowded landscape in which sports fans all exist now, where there's a million things going on, there's a million leagues, there's a million tournaments, there's a million different contests that demand your attention. College basketball I'm talking about this from a perspective of a person whose favorite college basketball team, UConn, is the back-to-back defending champion.
That's right.
And I do not care what is happening. I don't even know. I know that UConn's lost a bunch of close games to a bunch of crummy teams this year, and they're probably not going to.
I didn't even know that much.
Yeah, they lost to like a Seton Hall team in the regular season that was like 2-18 at the time, and so they're probably not going to three-peat. Whatever, that's fine. But I don't know. It has completely killed any lingering interest I had in any aspect of the tournament play. Am I alone, or are you with me on this?
Well, I'm with you. In fact, let's make it an official podcast position. I don't even. Here's the thing. The other day, I was in a Mexican restaurant. They had the ESPN on, which is basically almost the only time I watch ESPN anymore. Not to knock ESPN. Nothing appeals to me on that show. So I see it when I'm getting my hair cut at Sport Clips, and I see it when I'm in like restaurants. That's it. That's the only times I see it. And they had Kansas was playing somebody, and it had a 6 next to Kansas. Now, I used to cover Kansas at great length. I wrote many, many, many millions of words about Kansas over the years. I consider myself to be friends with Bill Self. I mean, I care what he's doing. My good friend Bill James is maybe the world's biggest KU fan, so I have connections. I looked at that and I thought they were having a bad year. I can't believe they're ranked number 6 in the country. They were not. They're 6 in the conference, I guess. Like, I think I was so out of it. I just was like, is Kansas good? Is Kansas not good? Don't know. Don't
No
care.
idea.
Not interested. What conference are they in? I know that they are still in the Big 12, if it's still called the Big 12 conference. But like, I don't know who else is in there with them. Like, I don't, it's baffling to me. And there's a part of me that goes, you know what, Mike, I don't know if you know this. We're old.
Is that
And
right?
yeah. And maybe this is just like, this is our version of the blinking light on the VCR that our parents could never figure out. Maybe it's like the kids are just like, hey man, just move them around. We don't care, whatever. But like, there's like, I don't understand any of it. Like, I don't understand why rivalries are gone. I don't understand what conference is what conference. Is there a single conference whose number actually matches up to how many teams are in the conference now? Like I know it's certainly the Big Ten is like 100 teams in it. And the Pac
Yeah.
12, does that even exist anymore? Is there even a Pac 12?
No, I think the Pac-12 has literally 2 teams in it or something.
Right. Like, yeah. And so I don't know anything. Everybody's in the SEC, right? Like the SEC has like, they've at this point conquered the world. I don't get it. And I feel like there's a loss because I used to love college basketball and I used to love this time of year coming into March Madness. And I don't know that I'm going to watch a single March Madness game this year. I just don't care.
I'm not kidding when I say that I have only watched, I believe, the semifinals and finals
Yeah.
in the last 2 years. Again,
right.
when my team is
did it.
winning everything, when they're like, and not only winning, rolling, like
Rolling.
winning by an average margin of in double digits, I believe,
Yeah.
for the first time ever. And my son gets really into March Madness. He loves making brackets. He doesn't know anything about the teams.
Right.
He loves talking. He loves like pretending to know about the coastal Carolina Chanticleers,
Yeah, the clear, sure,
and,
sure.
and stuff like that. And he's very funny when he does it. He suddenly assumes the role of expert.
He's like a little Dick Vitale, is what he is.
No, but also knowing literally nothing about anything. But he loves it. He loves making brackets, and I kind of like long for his enthusiasm and innocence.
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
wish that I could still summon any kind of I don't know, any kind of enthusiasm, but I just can't. It's gone. I don't know. I mourn that loss a little bit.
Yes.
I also think you might be right. It just might be like we're old and we remember. We're like the guys who were like the baseball was better when there were 8 teams, and then the winner went to the World Series, and like maybe that's just our situation that we're doomed to.
It feels like what's happened here, though, that's different. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe older people than us would disagree with me on this. It feels like this has changed way more dramatically than other sports. Like when somebody's like, oh, I loved hockey when it was 6 teams, and I loved, the NBA when it was, the Celtics won every year, and I loved baseball when it was, 16 teams and the winner went to the World Series or whatever. This feels like they just completely blew the whole thing up. Maybe that's how that felt to people of that generation too.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I don't understand college football at all anymore. I'm happy the players are making money. I'm happy that everybody's following whatever their, path they want to follow, but I don't get it. I don't understand any of it. I don't understand boosters buying players. I don't understand players transferring after a year. I don't understand the conferences. I don't understand the coaches making $12 bajillion. None of it makes any sense to me. And so it's like, when I'm watching the games are still fine. I just don't have that feeling anymore. And I hate it. For me, I miss it a lot. I really miss like caring about stuff. Like that was when I first started doing the Cleveland Browns diary over on my newsletter at Joe Blogs at joeposnanski.com. When I first started doing that, the whole point was to feel about the NFL the way I used to when I was a kid. That was the whole point, because I had been covering the league for years and still liked it and still liked writing about it, but also saw all of the horrors of the league, right? And I'm like, I want to care about something the way I did when I was a kid. And so I'm like, I'm going to start watching every Cleveland Browns game, and I'm going to write about it. Not from an analytical perspective or a sports writer perspective, but from a fan perspective. That was the whole point of it, and it became this other thing. And then the Browns went off the deep end and all of that. But that was the whole point. I feel the same way about college sports, all college sports across the board. I
Yeah.
feel the same way. It's like, God, I want to feel, and this is not even when I was a kid. I want to feel the way I felt 15 years ago about
Yeah.
this. You know?
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed, my friend. I don't think we're ever going to feel that way about college sports again. I will say that college football still makes more sense to me than college basketball.
Interesting.
I don't know why. I guess just because
Because you just want the playoffs to be as large as they can be. Is what you want.
I'm rooting for a 64 team playoff to happen soon, because I think that would really help. Let's make these 19-year-old kids play 12 extra games at the end of the season before they turn pro. But yeah, it's a bummer.
That is a little bit of a bummer.
I don't
By the
know
way,
what to do about it.
of that, by the way, the playoff thing, the like with college basketball, like it all seemed to me like a money grab. Like none of it made the sport better.
No,
But
God, no.
but in college football, even though I think a lot of it's a money grab, it is absolutely hilarious to think about the fact that we used to choose a national championship by vote.
It's amazing.
It's
so
one
funny.
of the most incredible things ever.
It's so funny that it was like, we're going to do two things here. We're going to get the media to vote.
Yep.
And then we're going to get the coaches to vote.
Coaches.
The one group of people we know isn't biased in any direction is the coaches of the teams.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I imagine that one of your favorite moments was when the coaches gave Tom Osborne.
Still can't talk about it. The best thing about the Michigan national championship, when they first of all, they beat Alabama in the semis, which was important because everyone would have said it wasn't legitimate unless they had beaten either Alabama or Georgia, right?
That's right.
But the best thing about it was that it erased the memory of 97, because in 97, for those of you who don't know, Michigan was number one all year. They went to the Rose Bowl, which is what happened to the Big Ten champion. You went to the Rose Bowl.
You had no choice.
You had no choice. You went to the Rose Bowl, and you played the Pac-10 champion, and the Pac-10 champion was Washington State. And they beat Washington State in a very close game. Washington State had the ball driving at the end of the game. Michigan stopped them, and they won. So they were number one going into the final game of the season.
That's right.
They won their bowl game, and then they did not win the national championship, or they won a share of it because Tom Osborne of Nebraska announced between the last game of the year when they were number two and then the bowl game they played, announced he was retiring, and all the coaches were like, well, Tom's retiring, so we gotta
give him the Lifetime Achievement Award to Oscar.
Yeah,
he already won a national championship.
He won twice, didn't he? I think he won back to back. And so it was this crazy thing where, like, if there's one thing you can count on in this corrupt system, it's that if you're number one going into your bowl game and you win your bowl game, you stay number one. This other team, because the coach is retiring, we're gonna just say like he's also number one, which was insane. And it was this thing where, like, it was like a sad moment for Michigan fans because you were like, if we win, we win, and then we won and we didn't win.
No.
And so that it took 30 years almost to erase that memory, but
it's hilarious that was a thing. That was a thing, and it was not only. I mean, everybody complained about it. It wasn't like even at that moment, everybody knew it was stupid. Not just the Michigan specific, but everybody knew it was stupid to choose a national champion by vote. It was the dumbest thing imaginable.
Yeah,
but they couldn't because at that point the bowl games basically ran they were the oligarchs of college football. They basically ran the sport, and they just were like, they cut it off. They just cut off any national championship talk. And then, of course, there was such a huge deal when they were able to pick two teams, which was ridiculous. And of course, now it'll eventually be everybody.
I believe that this might be revisionist history, but I believe that event essentially hastened the BCS system, right?
Yeah, it was one of them. It was one of them. There were a few in a row. I don't know if they were in a row, but there were a few in the 90s that were like, very weird.
Yeah.
They were very weird
That was
choice.
only a couple years removed
Or
from
the Georgia Tech one. Remember that? Georgia
Georgia
Tech split the national championship with
Georgia
who?
Tech one, but also like to give you a sense of how quickly things change in the sport. I mean, Nebraska's national championships in the 90s, I believe,
Yeah,
were like it was like Tommy Frazier running the triple option. I mean, it
that's
was
right.
like
That's right.
it was the there is a line of demarcation of the old and the new that's right around that time where like you could still win the national championship running the ball
Oh, absolutely.
78 times a game out of the same formation, and just they would just beat teams like 52-7.
Oh, I was at the game when they played Spurrier's Florida team, and Spurrier's bringing in that super,
Yeah.
the passing offense and whatever, and they obliterated that. And
Yeah.
that was the one where Tommy Frazier had like one of the greatest runs in football history, right? Where he looked like he was tackled and he
Yeah.
ran through 5 guys and went for the touchdown. They won like 52-17 or something.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a blowout.
It was ridiculous. And then very quickly after that, that offense disappeared. The only
Disappeared.
team that
And
runs it now is Navy.
as did Nebraska, by the
Yeah.
way. Like, I mean, like that's if you look at those teams, like I believe Georgia Tech, if I'm remembering this right, didn't Georgia Tech split the national championship with Colorado? Isn't that right? I'm pretty sure
Sounds right.
it was Colorado and Georgia Tech split the national championship. That's not a thing. Now, I mean, I guess Colorado kind of came back under Dion, but like that's not a thing. Like,
But what's Colorado next year without those two guys? You know what I mean? Like
not good, by the way. Well, they just go back to being Colorado. They just go back to being, they're fine or whatever. Now, which conference are they in? Like, if I gave you 5 schools, could you confidently name the 5 schools I named what conference they're in? Like,
no,
could you?
but
Yeah.
let's do it anyway. Let's
All right.
give
So Colorado is a good starting point.
Colorado is in the all South American 12.
I'm sure that's right. I don't even think I need to even look that up.
Yeah.
Like, they're in there. What conference is Florida State in now?
Florida State is in the MAC.
Pretty sure that's right as well. But
Yeah.
isn't it the MAC 12 now? Is it the MAC 13?
It's the MAC 16 because they added Florida State, Illinois,
Yep.
South Carolina, and Oregon State. So it's the MAC 16 now.
All right. Which conferences are the 2 Miamis in? The Miami of Ohio and Miami University.
Ironically, Miami of Ohio is in the SEC.
Right.
And Miami, Florida is in the PIP 20.
the PIF 20.
They're in the PIP 20. Yeah.
Where is the PIF 20 based? What's the theme behind the PIF 20?
The headquarters for the PIP 20 are in Santa Fe.
Santa Fe, sure.
Yeah, because New Mexico and New Mexico State are both
in the PIF 20. Yeah, I was wondering.
And then the other teams are. Let me see if I can name all of them. Vermont,
yeah.
Howard.
Howard is in. That's right. Howard.
Rice from down in Texas.
Rice is in. Tulane is Tulane in the PIF.
Tulane. Yep. Iowa State.
Yep. Virginia Tech or
Virginia A&M.
Virginia A&M is
Virginia A&M. Maine.
Yep. Maine in the PIF. Sure. Sure.
Then UConn and also
and Iowa State.
Connecticut College.
And Connecticut College.
Yeah.
And Iowa State, right? Is Iowa State in the PIF? Yeah.
Maryland.
Right.
UTEP.
UTEP.
El Paso.
Yep.
University of Nevada at Reno.
Oh, but what about University of Nevada, Las Vegas?
No, they're in the ACC.
They're back in the ACC.
And then Sacramento State. I believe UCSF, which only has a medical school, somehow is in the PIP 20.
They're in the PIP 20. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then Washington University in St. Louis.
Okay, in St. Louis, but where Washington University itself?
Oh no! Washington University is in the Big 12.
They're in the Big 12. Sure. Yeah. All right. It all makes sense. It really does. If
realignments, it's been crazy. Like the travel, these teams, Connecticut College has to travel out to Washington University in St. Louis like twice a year.
It's the way it should be. Isn't UMKC in the PIF now?
They're in the PIF. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought they were. I thought they were in the PIF. All right. So now that we've got college football, college sports all figured out, we're going to do our POScars, our re-POScars again, where
Yeah.
we're going to go back all the way back to 1989. So what is that? 26 years. We're going back 26 years
25 years really, but you're 26 years, 25 years for the ceremony, but
for the
26 years
ceremony,
for
the
yeah.
1990 ceremony, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to go back and, but before we do that, I do think I don't know that it's an emergency because I don't know that we would consider it emergency here at the podcast, but some news happened with the New York Yankees.
It did.
This
Yes,
past
that's
week.
correct.
And it probably is worth discussing. So on the it's sad. It is sad. We have made clear here our feelings about the Yankees, but obviously we never want to see anybody get hurt. We never want to see a great player have their career interrupted. But that is exactly what's happening to Garrett Cole, kind of as predicted, by the way, here on the podcast.
Yeah,
Right?
last year in around the same time, elbow troubles. We know what this means. A fairly shocking diagnosis that he was not going to have the surgery and
Right.
instead was going to rehab it. Everyone was very skeptical. Came back halfway through the year and pitched very well.
He totally pitched well.
Yeah,
I mean, his velocity was down. Look at it wasn't 100%, but he pitched well.
he pitched like Garrett Cole, and he got
did.
that team. He was the ace of a team that went to the World Series, and
Absolutely.
now as you have said many times, no one defeats the elbow. The elbow will get you if you throw that hard and with that much spin. So this team now, defending AL champion New York Yankees,
Yes.
they have lost Garrett Cole.
Right.
They've lost Luis Gil, the AL Rookie of the Year last year, for at least 3 months with a
and by the way, maybe for the year. I mean, I know they're saying he's going to come. I'm not trying to. I mean, I hope he comes back as soon as possible. But that injury does not sound good either.
That injury is very hard for a pitcher. A lat is just something that doesn't heal easily. Right. And also, even if he does come back in 3 months, spring training starts for him in June, and then it's like, what is he really doing for the rest of the year? Obviously, Soto plays for a different team in the same city now. You've got you're.
By the way, I don't know if you heard the news because this was, I mean, I was shocked. Giancarlo Stanton's also hurt.
No.
I don't know if you heard that.
I know. Iron Man? Baseball's Iron Man? Giancarlo Stanton?
Baseball's modern day Cal Ripken.
He's got double tennis elbow, which is a very strange thing for a designated hitter to have. So you now have you're basically saying, if you're the Yankees, your number one starter is who? Max Fried, probably.
Oh, yeah. I think it's Fried and Rodon, right?
Fried and Rodon, and Marcus Stroman, who was supposed to compete for like a seventh guy, is now like your third starter.
By the way, that worked out for him, right? Like he was ticked off. They were sending him to the bullpen, and now they're like, oh, no, you're our number 3 starter now.
It should be noted that neither Fried nor Rodon has been particularly durable in their careers. Fried's K to walk ratio has gone down 4 years in a row, and they've both been hurt. And I don't know where your offense is coming from, because now Goldschmidt is like your cleanup hitter, and he's falling off the cliff.
Have you seen that lineup that they're trying to throw out there? I mean, it's basically Judge before. I mean, the way they have it right now is they do have Goldschmidt number 4, and then they've got Judge number 3, obviously. And I assume they're going to lead off. I don't know. I mean,
Jazz probably. I would guess. I don't know.
I don't think. Are they going to lead off Jazz? I mean, I would think they're going to lead off Volpe, maybe. But
oh yeah. Well,
I saw they were going to put Austin Wells, Judge, and Goldschmidt back to back to back. Man, like if you're a pitcher, there's one guy in there that you don't want to face.
Yeah,
and that's.
I think it should be
Bellinger,
said.
I mean, what are they going to do with him? Like at some point, is he going to hit 5? Is he going to hit 2? Like I don't even know.
You're looking at a team that now has as its best 3 starters Carlos Rodon, Max Fried, and Marcus Stroman. You have in the middle of your lineup, you're relying a lot on Cody Bellinger and Judge. Obviously, the one thing you can count on is Judge. Although Judge turns 34 years old on
Yeah, but
April 26th.
he better be the one guy you can count
Right.
on. Yeah.
I don't think there's any chance at all that this team wins more than 102 games.
and that's you're pretty confident in saying.
I'm pretty confident in saying that.
I mean,
I think they're in real
big.
trouble. I cannot see a world where they win 103 games this year.
I got to agree with you. You know what? This is the ultimate setup, right? This is the ultimate.
100%.
Go into the year, they're dead, they're done, they're like nothing good can come, and then what?
Cody, here's if you look, we don't bet on sports, you and I.
Right.
We don't engage in that. However, if you are someone who likes to bet on sports, let me give you some easy bets to win easy money. Okay. Yes. Cody Bellinger over 10 home runs in April. Paul Goldschmidt over 600 slugging percentage in April. Aaron Judge over 75 home runs. Anthony Volpe over 260 hits. Like this is the absolute
rookie of the year for sure.
Carlos Rodon, AL Cy Young, top 3 finish. Like these are the easiest bets you could ever make because when the Yankees on March 13th, when you're talking about how screwed the Yankees are, they have you right where they want you.
That's where they want you. That's exactly where they want you. It's weird because they're like the Bond-like figure in that the worse it looks for them, the better it turns out.
100%. Because they'll find Matt Carpenter on the scrap heap and he'll hit like Barry Bonds for 3 months until some of these guys come back. They'll find there will be some pitcher that neither of us has ever heard of.
Yeah.
Who if at the All-Star who like is the third pitcher into the game in the All-Star game in July. And that pitcher will be 9-3 with a 2.12 ERA and 108 strikeouts in 95 innings. And it's gonna make me put my fist through a wall. And this happens every year, every single year.
Wait till May 15th when you open up your, whatever sport site you like to go to. And the big headline is how the Yankees turned Carlos Carrasco around.
How the Yankees breathed new life into Carlos Carrasco's career. It is 100% right. I don't know that there's any surer bet in the world than the Yankees are in first place on June 1st. If you make no other bet on sports this year, bet on the Yankees being in first place in the AL East on June 1st of this year.
Yeah. We are yet to do our 98.6% accurate baseball predictions, but there's one that you can just count on. Okay. And by the way, the other one I think you can count on, I hope I'm wrong. I just think that we're going to about May, June, July, look up and go, man, the Orioles blew it, man.
My God.
Yes, blew it. It doesn't have to work out that way. They still have all of these great young players. It could work out that they are the best team in the American League. It could work out that way. I just don't think it will.
The Yankees got Devin Williams to close, right?
Yes.
Why didn't the Orioles get Devin Williams to close? Could the Orioles not put together a better package for Devin Williams?
Listen, there's not been a trade. I mean, specifically, you talk about your Red Sox getting Garrett Crochet. No team in baseball could have offered a better deal for any of these players than the Orioles.
No.
All the Orioles have are prospects. All the Orioles have are young players. I mean, they're just loaded. They did nothing.
The fact that they haven't made Heston Kjerstad a absolutely expendable player for them based on their roster, and a guy who still is considered a top prospect, even though he hasn't played great when he's been up, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
How they have not made him the centerpiece of a deal for a significant World Series piece is beyond me. It is truly and utterly shocking how little they've done with how much they have. It's a little bit like if the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have are probably the best top to bottom roster in basketball, maybe the Cavs have an argument, maybe the Celtics have an argument, but I think it's Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma City has the best top to bottom roster in basketball. They're one of the youngest teams in basketball. They're in all likelihood going to the finals and will likely have a good chance of winning the finals.
A good chance of winning, for sure.
And they own like everyone's draft picks. Everyone. They own The Sixers are terrible this year. They own the Sixers draft pick if it's outside the top 6.
Yep.
They own Rockets draft choices and whoever Wizards draft choices, and they have like 15 number 1 picks in the next 6 years and the best roster. And so if they don't win it all this year, which I actually right now think they beat the Celtics last night in Boston, I think if I had to bet on a
pretty
team to win,
convincingly, by the way.
yeah, they're
I mean,
like
not want to blow up, but I mean they beat the Celtics.
They straight up beat the Celtics,
Yeah.
and they forced the Celtics to take 62 threes or something, which is even for the Celtics is insane. But there were sequences last night. This is a side segment within our current segment, but there were sequences last night where the Celtics had them right where they wanted them, which is to say somebody drove and kicked the ball out to what is almost always in the modern NBA, an open three.
Right.
And some incredibly athletic Thunder wing defender suddenly closed out. And then, but that person who had the ball whipped the ball to the wing. And that person usually has an open three. Nope, there's an Oklahoma City defender right there. And they whip it again, and they whip it again, and they keep doing it. And then suddenly, and no one's ever open. And it's like when the defense collapses on a guy who drives, somebody somewhere is open.
Yeah.
And the Celtics, of all teams, have made their living by having Tatum or Brown drive, have the defense collapse, kick out someone, Derek White.
That's modern NBA, for sure. Yes.
But the Celtics are as good at it, if not better at it, than everyone. And last night, there were a couple sequences where the Thunder are so young and so athletic, they just closed out on every one of those 3-point shooters. And what ended up happening was a contested bad 3 instead of a wide open good 3. And when I was watching that and just thinking like, and the one caveat here is Celtics didn't have Porzingis, and the Thunder ran a double big lineup a bunch of times with Hartenstein and Chet. And by the way, Chet was like shooting the lights out, like just like draining threes like it was nothing. But when they ran that double big lineup, the Celtics had to counter with Horford and Luke Cornett. And it looked very different when they're running that double big lineup if they're countering with, say, Horford and Porzingis.
Yeah.
And so that's one minor caveat. But at the same time, the Thunder didn't have Jalen Williams, and he's an all-star, and he's really good.
He's really good.
I just watched the game and was like, the Celtics cannot, in a 7-game series, compete with this team unless Porzingis is healthy, which is a big if because he's been hurt a lot. He was hurt all through the playoffs last year.
Yeah. And
so you'd be betting right now, if I had to, I would bet on the Thunder to win it all. And yet the point is, they not only have this roster that is as good or better than anyone else's roster, they also have a billion assets. And if they can trade 17 of their billion assets to get next year, if they don't win it all, or even if they do, to get a big time shot making, that the one knock on them is that outside of Shea, they don't have a truly reliable second scorer. Jalen Williams is as close as they come, maybe Chet. But if one of these guys who gets antsy and demands a trade wants to leave their team, then no one can make a better package than the Thunder, and they're going to do it because Sam Presti is really smart, and the Orioles have done the opposite of what Sam Presti would do, and that, generally speaking, is a bad idea.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's almost like if they only had somebody who Dallas would have needed. If only they had something. If only they could have put a package together for something too.
Okay, so now you bring this up. Let's revisit this because we talked about this last week, when we nominated Nico Harrison officially as the
we didn't even nominate him. We just named him.
We named him our inaugural opposite of -1 over the concept of the NBA Executive of the Year, right?
That's right.
So a friend of mine posited something to me that I don't agree with, but I think is worth bringing up. So there were a couple rumors that came out. Their veracity has yet to be proven, that he actually did kind of poke around with other teams to see what people would offer, that it wasn't quite as solely focused on the Lakers and Anthony Davis as maybe we thought. I don't know if that's true or not. That was a rumor last week. The other thing that this friend of mine brought up is the idea that if you really looked at, if you looked at a list of like the 15 best players in the league, a list on which Luka would be what, number 2 or 3,
They're 3, yeah,
right?
right.
And you said, and your owners said, we have to trade that guy.
Yeah,
This is a directive to you from us, the owners. We're
right.
your
As
bosses,
we
and you have to
discussed
trade him.
that. Yep.
And you really look at those top 15 players. My friend's argument was Anthony Davis might have been the best player that was available.
Yeah, but why? But see, that's the problem. Why was Anthony Davis available? That's my point. Is not that this was some sort of blowout trade in the quality of the two players at their peaks, right? I mean,
No.
First of all, if you had made this trade 7 years ago, I mean, obviously Luka wouldn't have just been a kid, but I'm just saying this version of Luka for Anthony Davis at 24. I mean, I still think probably Luka is maybe but that's a comparable. I mean, Anthony Davis was truly the most unstoppable player in the NBA at that point, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Not a 30-something-year-old Anthony Davis who has had this incredible injury. That was, to me, the issue. It's not. Yes, you could definitely say, "Hey, I'm looking at the list of the 15. Look, I'm not getting Shea. I'm not getting Donovan Mitchell. I'm not getting Tatum. I'm not getting any of these guys." Like, you could easily do that, and that's 100% true. But there's a reason. There's a reason.
That was my argument. My argument was the reason he was available is because he wasn't that valuable at his age. My friend's point was that he believed that the ownership of the Mavericks, for whatever reason, made this.
I believe that too.
My response was, if that's the case, your job is to resign. You should be Nixon's attorney general, and you should say, "I'm not doing this. I'm sorry. Like I'm going to resign." And his counterpoint to that was, he's a general manager. He wants to show the league and other potential employers that he does what his job is, that he makes the best deal he can, blah, blah, blah. But I said, I think if I were in his position and I were told by ownership to trade a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame, who doesn't want to leave, who's 25 years old, the best I can do is Anthony Davis and a pick, I think I would say, I'm sorry, I can't in good conscience pull the trigger on this. Get someone else to do it.
I agree with that. Look, I remember having a conversation with Dayton Moore along these lines where we were talking about, pushing back against ownership, and at the time the Royals were owned by David Glass, and he was pretty famously cheap and pretty famously, tough to deal with in some ways. And I said, well, how do you deal with that? And he talked about, you push back and you fight back, and, he goes, but there comes a line where you turn over the desk, right? Like there comes a line where you're like, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that. I can't do that. And so I think the 2 points to me are, one, I totally believe that this was a directive. I don't know that that's true. None of us know if it's true, but I believe it's a directive because it doesn't make any sense to me any other way.
Right.
And I also believe it could have been a directive to the point where he might have been able to get a way better package, but he had to go to the owner with a superstar. Like, he had to go to the owner. Like, he could have gotten a draft package and some young, very athletic players, and that the owner of the Mavericks probably have never heard of, and it would have been a way better deal. But he probably had to go to them and say, "Oh, look, I brought you back star power. I brought you back Anthony Davis." So I think that's one possibility. But the other thing is, you have to ask the question. So, and I don't know the answer to this. I assume it'll get around the league why he made the deal. I assume every other team will know when he loses his job or quits at some point. And the question you have to ask yourself is, I'm an owner of a team, and we're looking for a new GM. What do I want more? Do I want more the guy that followed orders and did what I told him to do? Or do I want more a guy who on his principles said, I'm not going to destroy this team.
Yeah.
I know what's right. I'd rather have the second guy. I mean, now maybe owners are not like that. I mean, they're billionaires.
They're definitely not. They definitely want people.
I think like Cuban might be. Cuban's not an owner anymore, but I think there are some owners who would be, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe loyalty is the only thing that matters.
Loyalty and taking orders is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting that Cuban came out and gave that interview where he was basically like, yeah, we didn't get enough for that guy. And and the story when he sold to the Adelsons was that he was going to still run basketball operations. I think
Right.
we've proven that he is not currently running
He is not
basketball
doing that.
operations.
No, he is not doing that.
And I feel like there's like a kind of a crisis point happening, I think, in the NBA right now, because the best run franchises of the last 10 years are all many of them are in flux, I would say. And there are guys like Daryl Morey, who is obviously a genius at what he does, who has now put together a team that is a deep lottery team, because of injuries, and they haven't even started paying Embiid's extension yet. It kicks in next year. Paul George is on the books for 3 more years after this. That team is a total mess. The Celtics are about to sell the team. There was a story yesterday that came out that one of the bidders is essentially a venture capital fund, I think called like SPX. And the thing about venture capital is it is utterly and completely agnostic about everything other than profit. And so,
is that true?
I believe it is. And so I was like, when I read that, I was like, oh, this is the worst case scenario, because this team has been family owned essentially for a very long time. They have understood the assignment of what it means to own the Celtics. Yeah. And if a venture capital firm buys it and the venture capital firm determines that it can make more money and a higher profit by moving the team to El Paso, Texas, it will do that. It won't care about the howls and the pain and the agony and everything else. And, this is like, what is a better situation really than the Boston Celtics right now? Maybe the Thunder,
right?
Maybe the Cavs, but I actually think that the Celtics are better because they have their two best guys are 28 and 26.
Right.
They have essentially everyone else locked up except for Porzingis needs to be either let go or after this year or extended, and that's going to be hard because they're deep into the tax. But they have drafted incredibly well. They have made incredibly prudent trades. They got Derek White for basically 1 first-round pick, and he's the key to that whole team. They traded for Drew Holiday when no one else wanted him, and they locked him up. And by locking him up, he played his heart out and is the heart of the defense. It's an incredibly stable organization that is about to get really unstable.
Yeah.
And when you're in a situation like that, where this stuff is so unstable, and then you have an ownership group that doesn't know anything about basketball saying to its GM, this guy who his ceiling is to be like the 7th best basketball player who's ever played basketball in the history of basketball, dump him. Like, this is the stuff that unmoors the league and unmoors teams and causes just everything to go haywire. And it feels like a very, for a bunch of sort of legacy franchises and high profile franchises in major markets, it feels right now to me that things are quietly, it's like the duck swimming along the surface and it looks calm, and then underneath
it's just paddling away.
That's how this league feels to me right now. And I feel like there's a chance that a whole bunch of kind of wild, unpleasant stuff happens to the NBA in the next 3 years.
It's interesting. I mean, it definitely could happen. I mean, it's been on such a rise for so long.
Yeah.
I saw, by the way, I was watching ESPN because I was getting my haircut at Sport Clips, and they were listing off the whatever ESPN ChatGPT predictions, or like the odds for the NBA finals, what the matchup will be. And the number one matchup by the odds, very high percentage, was Oklahoma City, Cleveland, right? Like that was number 2. Right. Number 2 was Oklahoma City, Boston.
Right.
And number 3 was the Lakers and Cleveland, I think. And I think 4 might have been Cleveland also, which I thought was interesting. Now, you're a Boston guy. I'm a Cleveland guy. I don't know that I see it. Like, I love this Cavs team. This Cavs team is fantastic. And they are to me the epitome. When you talked about that Oklahoma City defense, that's the key to that team. I mean, Shea is otherworldly, right? Shea might be the best player in the world right now. I mean,
Yeah.
he's right there.
He's the best scorer in the world,
Best
I would say.
scorer,
Yeah.
but I mean, he ain't hurting that team on defense.
No,
I mean,
no, he's good.
yeah. So, uh, so you look at that team and you're like, okay, I get it. That Cleveland team is deep. They're so good. Donovan Mitchell, I've been singing his thing for the last few years. I mean, he's not going to win an MVP, but he's like right at that level, right?
Yeah,
Like
the Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Fame player, and Darius Garland's amazing. That team is amazing. I still think a healthy version of that Celtics team is better. And I mean, and I say that being like, I'd love it, obviously, if Cleveland won, but I still think Boston is still a tick better. I mean, taking off your Boston hat, do you agree with that?
It's real close.
Yeah.
Because I've watched a lot of the Cavs this year. The weird thing about that team is that their strength in the regular season is that they roll like 11 deep. And
Yes.
so their guys have, their starters are averaging like 30 minutes a game.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's
crazy.
wild. And in the regular season, they have the ability to just throw waves of guys at you.
Oh, yeah, they're just throwing Ty Jerome at you for 20 minutes a game.
And they're playing really well, those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that they keep doing that in the playoffs. And if they don't keep doing that, it's a little bit like, do you remember that Bruins team that won the President's Trophy a few years ago? And they did it. They had Swayman and who's the other goalie? Now I can't remember. But anyway, they were rotating their goalies back and forth. They had two of the best goalies in the league, and they were just alternating them back and forth every game. And then they got to the playoffs, and they stopped doing that.
Yeah.
And when they stopped doing it, the Panthers beat them, and they just beat them in 7. And it was like, should they have kept doing that? It's hard to know. Like, do you do what works in the regular season in the playoffs, or do you change? Like, now we're in the playoffs, we got to change things up. So I don't know, like, what happens if Donovan Mitchell suddenly is playing 38 minutes a game instead of 30?
Right.
Is that good? It might be good, or it might be bad. I don't know.
Really good. He might be fresh. Obviously, that might be a big
right.
Fresher. But you're right. Part of what that team does day in, day out now is wear you down.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just fresher than you are the whole game because I
think there's a lot of, as much as I'm kvetching about the league and its future, there are like 6 or 8 playoff matchups that if we get them will be wonderful and epic.
I think this year is super fun. Yeah.
There is Cleveland Boston is a 7-game series waiting to happen, and it's a 7-game series where with 3 minutes left in game 7, it's 106 to 106.
Yeah.
And that it would be just super fun.
Yes.
There are also series flying under the radar that are potential series that I think would be fascinating. Like, for example, the Knicks and the Pistons, the Pistons very quietly are one of the toughest teams in the league. They're playing really well. Cade Cunningham is a legitimate superstar. I think they don't fear anyone. They've got a bunch of guys in their team who walk into the game and their thought is, who am I fighting tonight? Who am I going to punch in the face? And the Knicks have been hurt. And I think that if that were a first round series and I were a Knicks fan, I would be extremely worried about that.
Yeah.
There's also the Warriors, since Butler got there, are like 12-2. The Lakers now have Luka. There is a potential Denver OKC Western Conference Finals that would be massively fun to watch.
And I mean, there are teams that we've talked about this before. There are teams like Houston and Memphis, and like they're not flying under the radar, but you're like, I don't even think about them that much, and they're just, I mean, that Houston team
Memphis would be super fun. Houston is like sort of OKC light in a way because they play incredible defense and they're super young and super athletic. Also, don't sleep on the Minnesota Timberwolves, who beat the hell out of the Nuggets last night by 20 and have the I think the easiest record, or like the third easiest record of opponent for the rest of the season, might be about to go like 13-3 and suddenly move up to like the 5 seed or the 4 seed. There are just the playoffs this year are promising right now. Who knows what's going to happen? They are promising to be super fun. And I think that there are, like, that thing that you talked about of like, what are the odds for the championship? I think Boston OKC would be incredible. I think Cleveland OKC would be incredible. I think Boston LA, we know what that would be. Like
Yes.
Cleveland LA would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Like Cleveland Golden State, a rematch would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Like does one of these crazy young teams knock off, does Houston somehow knock off OKC? Like
Yeah.
there are juicy matchups all over the board.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing. And then we're not even talking about Denver. We're not even
Yeah.
talking about them.
Who had Denver, whose best player put up a 30-20-20 game the other day.
For the first time ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, I cannot wait. It is going to be so fun. I get to say this having the like calm of a guy whose team won the title last year. And it's really hard to go back to back. And if the Celtics don't win, I'm not complaining. I'm not sad. It's like, well, it's really hard to win back to back titles. It's fine. I just, as a fan of the sport and the league, I'm so revved up for the NBA.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. Whatever long-term issues there might be, I mean, I think this year is going to be super exciting. All right, it's time for our re-POScars 1989 year, 1990 re-POScar.
25 years ago.
25,
wild.
Can you believe it? It just, it again, feels so long ago and also just like yesterday. So as we do last week we did 1988 and give you our best movie, best actor, best actress, best supportings, and best director. First, let me give you what the Oscar winners that were, and I will say them because I do not believe, at least on my end, any of these people are going to win a re-POScar, but we'll see. Best movie in 1989 was Driving Miss Daisy. That was your best picture. Your best actor was Morgan Freeman from Driving Miss Daisy, and Jessica Tandy won as well. They swept. Driving Miss Daisy swept the Academy's top awards. Best supporting actor was Denzel Washington from Glory. Remember Glory? That was a fine movie. Best supporting actress was Brenda Fricker from My Left Foot, which, I mean...
who can forget?
Brenda Fricker's role. I mean, no offense to Brenda Fricker, who I'm sure was fan. I mean, I've seen the movie. I don't remember Brenda Fricker specifically because that movie was literally Daniel Day-Lewis writing stuff with his left foot. So whoever else was in that movie doesn't seem that important, but it is a supporting role. So
sure.
And then your best director, and I know, look, this is going to be your best director also. So I'm sure this is how that's going to go. Your best director was Oliver Stone for Born on the 4th of July.
Sure.
Which obviously. So I don't know that any of those are going to win re-POScars this year. But what we do is we go through our category choices. And if we agree, we choose on a re-POScar. If we don't agree, we each give our own re-POScar. And I say we start off with supporting actress as the goes. So is Brenda Fricker your supporting actress from 1989?
No.
Oh,
she's not.
That was it close? Was it?
There are two movies that came out this year that are extremely important to me and which I think are criminally underrated.
Okay.
I mean, there's a bunch of underrated movies, as there always are.
Yeah.
But 1989 it is the year that Field of Dreams came out.
It is right.
And it's also the year, and this is more important for a lot of these categories, that Parenthood came out.
Yeah, now, Parenthood was great.
I want to say, for the record, that I, as a professional writer, cite the movie Parenthood all the time for a bunch of reasons. The main reason, though, is that Parenthood is like a magic trick of writing where there are, I don't know, 20, 25 characters in that movie who matter.
Yeah.
And somehow, and I still don't know how this is true. Somehow each of them is incredibly three-dimensional and fully realized.
Totally agreed.
It's a 2-hour movie that has the content in terms of character building of like a 6-hour movie.
Yeah.
And I believe that the best supporting actress winner should have been Diane Wiest from Parenthood.
She was great. She was great.
It's of all of the performances in that movie, it's, I think, my favorite. She's so funny and so like real as a single mom who
Yeah.
is struggling to raise her daughter and her troubled teenage son. She's trying to just have a life and be a person, and it's really hard, and she keeps stepping in it over and over again, and is just stressed out and like so winning and so charming and so lovely. And the fact that they give her a sort of happy potential ending with her dating her kid's science teacher is makes me so, every time it happens and I watch that movie, I'm so happy for her that she just
Yeah.
found like a nice guy who seems to treat her well, and that she has some good positive companionship in her life. It is an all-time performance in a supporting role, and I think she's my winner.
I love that pick. I love it. By the way, that's a great movie. And also,
Incredible.
I was thinking about this. Parenthood is, to me, and directed by Ron Howard, to me, kind of the opposite of Love Actually. Like
Yes.
right? Like Love Actually also tried to do 500 stories in one movie, and none of them connected, other than they all saw each other at the airport at the end or something, and
Right.
none of it made sense. And it was just like, I mean, it's my daughter Katie's one of her favorite movies, so I'm not knocking the movie itself, but from a cohesiveness standpoint, what Parenthood did is so crazy good.
That screenplay, if you are an aspiring writer and you want to study a screenplay to learn how to quickly and efficiently and expertly draw characters,
Yeah,
study that screenplay. It's an all-timer. It's like, if you want to learn how to create a good plot, read Back to the Future.
yeah,
If you want to learn how to create good characters, read Parenthood. That's my
it's
advice to you.
amazing. I am my re-POScar for supporting actress is not going to go to Diane Wiest, even though she was fantastic. I have a pretty strong feeling about this, and you might totally disagree with this, but I'm giving my re-POScar supporting actress to Carrie Fisher from When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
Yeah, I that performance is so funny, and so she is such a bundle of nerves and anxieties, and it's wonderful. And when she finally finds Bruno Kirby, like there's this. I mean, they're obviously the supporting star, but like their story in some ways is like even more appealing to me than even the main story of the movie.
Sure.
Uh yeah, I love her performance in that movie.
The funniest line in that whole movie is when they're getting engaged, and they raise a toast and they say to Harry and Sally, "If either one of us had found either one of them even remotely interesting, this wouldn't be happening."
I love that. There are a bunch of Carrie Fisher lines in there, like the whole you're right, I know you're right," that she kind of keeps repeating every time they tell him that the guy she's dating is never going to leave his
Yeah.
wife. So that's very funny. And then there's a point where she looks to find his checkbook, and finds that he had just bought his wife like a negligee or something, and like, but in it he's like, and then it was just there, his checkbook in his briefcase, and I just the in his briefcase, so good. I love her. I just think she's fantastic in it, and a tragedy that Carrie Fisher never won an Academy Award. I
Yeah,
feel like
just good in everything she
just
ever did.
good, just good. Right. I mean, that sort of is the essence of the re-POScars, is like everybody's looking for like this great performance that you can see in the moment. Like, that's like Tom Cruise won a bunch of Academy, not Academy, but he won the BAFTA and he won some other awards for Born on the 4th of July. That's just a flashy, like Tom Cruise has been better in like 25 other movies, I
Yeah.
think. But that one was like the Oscar movie, so I don't like that. All right, supporting actor, I've got like 50
Yeah.
nominees. It's so good, including, by the way, since you already brought it up, the other movie that came out that year that I think is fantastic along these same lines is Major League. Major League came out in that same year. There are three guys in Major League that I think supporting actors should be up for nominees, including Bob Uecker, by the way. I think Bob Uecker,
Fantastic.
for Major League. Dennis Haysbert for Major League as Pedro.
Sure.
Yep. and Chelsea Ross as the Gaylord Perry-esque spitballing, God-loving pitcher. Fantastic. Um, but I think it's kind of hard not to give it to James Earl Jones from Field of Dreams. I
Yeah, that's
kind
right.
of feel like that's the answer. No,
Yeah, so there's a this is an incredibly strong category for
strong,
this
so
year.
strong.
James Earl Jones is your winner,
Yeah.
in terms of memorability and just greatness.
Yes.
But you've also got, among other people, you've got, I don't know if John Candy for Uncle Buck counts as lead or supporting.
I kind of put him as lead, but yeah.
What about Spike Lee and Do the Right Thing? That's lead.
That's more lead. I'll tell you one. I mean, Nicholson in Batman is
Yeah,
as the
sure.
Joker. He's still kind of my favorite. I mean, Cesar Romero is my favorite Joker, but he's kind of my second favorite Joker.
Sean Connery in Indiana
Yes,
Jones and the Last
I have him
Crusade.
down. Yeah.
Bruno Kirby in When Harry Met Sally.
Yep.
I guess Robin Williams in Dead Poets is lead, right? So
I don't think so.
Really?
I have him in supporting, and he was great.
He's
great in that role.
Certainly a nominee, and you could argue he's the winner.
Yeah.
You've got just a bunch of people, and then obviously in Parenthood alone, you've probably got 6 candidates, right? You've got obviously Steve Martin, you've got Jason Robards.
You got the guy that played. I think it was great in it. The guy that played Mozart. What's that guy?
Tom Hulce. Yeah.
Tom Hulce. Yeah.
Like every one of those guys. This is our award ceremony. We're extending. You can nominate up to 50 people. So all these people are nominated.
And by the way, Denzel gets a nomination as long as we're
100%. Yes.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
He was wonderful. I mean, Connery in Indiana Jones and Last Crusade is a strong contender. But I think at the end of the day, you're just like, yeah, no, it's James Earl Jones. See, the monologues and the dog and a beer and the giggle when he heads into the corn. So wonderful. That's your winner.
Best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's your winner. So that's it. We have an official podcast winner on that one.
Yeah.
All right. For Best Actress that year, so I remember that. So Jessica Tandy won, but the person who a lot of people thought would win, because I think she won all the other awards, was Michelle Pfeiffer from Fabulous Baker Boys. And she was amazing in Fabulous Baker Boys.
Sure.
I mean, she was absolutely great. So I'm happy to give her the award. I'll throw a couple of others out there and just sort of, we'll see. I think you nominate Winona Ryder from Heathers, right? I mean, Winona Ryder is definitely a re-POScar favorite. She was great. I would nominate Ione Skye from Say Anything. I think she was fantastic.
Is she supporting though? That's my fear, is that she's supporting.
She's the main. I guess, is he the main character? I mean, they're kind of both main characters. I would put that. She could be a supporting.
Yeah, I think she's supporting. I would also say Andie MacDowell from Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Yeah, fantastic.
That was her kind of breakout role.
Fantastic. And she, I don't want to even bring this up because it's very, very painful to me, but Andie MacDowell hates me. And
really?
I know this is, well, it's so years and years and years ago, back in the very, very early days of a little app called Twitter, everybody used to do goofy things on Twitter. And at one point I put up like a funny, what was supposed to be, it is not funny, what was supposed to be a funny little poll about worst actress. And I included Andie MacDowell in there, and I included
from Four Weddings and a Funeral.
I think it was from Four Weddings and a Funeral, because it was that scene.
It's the line. Her whole career was damaged by one line, which is "Is it raining? I hadn't noticed," which is a terrible line of dialogue.
It's a terrible fault. She couldn't have delivered. It's not her fault, but I.
No one in the world could have delivered that line with any conviction.
Yeah, it was totally unfair. I take full blame. And the other person I put in there was what's her name? The actress from Splash.
Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah from something. I can't remember what it was. And I just put it up, goofy little thing. I had like 42 followers at the time. Like it was intended to be just stupid. Yes, Andy McDowell saw it. Yes, Andy McDowell was offended, more offended on behalf of Daryl Hannah than she was on behalf of herself. Um, and then I did the worst possible thing you could do in that moment, which is I said something to the effect of, "Oh my God, I'm sorry. I was just joking. It's just a stupid little thing that I was doing with my friends." And I felt basically the way that those guys at the table must have felt in Notting Hill when Julia Roberts comes over to them, and I just like, because she was like, "Yeah, right," and that's it. So yeah, I feel so. I'm more than happy to give the award to Andy McDowell just to make it up to her from
Sure.
all of those years ago.
I have no problem with that. By the way, I'm already realizing as I look through this list now, we've already forgotten like 50 great performances that deserve mentioning for the
Yes.
supporting categories. One of them, Martin Landau in Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Oh,
Incredible.
now is he? I guess he's supporting because of the way that movie was.
Yeah, yeah.
He should
And
have he should have won the Oscar that year. Like
yeah.
that year, he was so good. I mean,
By the
obviously,
way, also Alan Alda from that movie is incredible.
if it bounces, it's funny. Yeah, yeah,
If and also I want to give a special supporting actress nominee to Patsy Kensit from Lethal Weapon 2, not because it's a particularly great performance, but
yeah.
because I don't believe that I've ever been as deeply in love with anyone I have never met as I was with Patsy Kensit from Lethal Weapon 2 after I saw the movie Lethal
Interesting,
Weapon 2.
because
So
I felt the same way about Ione Sky after Say Anything.
there you go.
That's exactly how I
Also,
felt.
by the way, Mary Steenburgen from Parenthood should
Oh,
have been nominated.
fantastic.
There, that
Fantastic.
movie just has they could have just given all the supporting actor category nominees to all of the people in Parenthood, and it would have been perfectly reasonable.
Yes,
Um, I,
absolutely.
I'm happy to go with Andy McDowell here. I would also, if Ione Sky is lead, I would give it to
Yeah.
her too. I don't. This is a less good year for lead actress
Yeah, I mean, I think Michelle
nominees. I
Pfeiffer
think.
was fantastic. That movie, I don't know how well that movie holds up. I don't know if anybody watches that movie anymore, but she was incredibly good in that
Yeah,
movie. Just incredibly good in that movie.
yeah.
Uh, before we get to Best Actor, I do want to mention one other movie from that year that came out, not specifically because it was good or bad, but because it was of a type, and that is Chances Are came out that year. Do you remember Chances
I
Are?
don't.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. plays like, I guess the key is that the main actor dies at the beginning, and then he races back to Earth and skips over like the part where they make him forget who he was, and so he is basically the young Robert Downey Jr. And so now the young Robert Downey Jr. is in love with this older woman, and that was like a thing, right? Like all of those 18 agains, and you've seen and heard the Mulaney skit where they do like a Freaky Friday type of thing, but the whole plot is basically on the kid sleeping with his mom, like
Yeah,
that. That's a type of movie. Like Chances Are was of that type, like
sure.
the kid being with somebody a lot older than him.
What about again, I'm still back on supporting. What about everyone from Steel Magnolias too, by the way? Dolly Parton
They
and
were all great.
Sally Field and Julia Roberts and Olympia Dukakis and Shirley
They,
MacLaine. I don't know who the lead is or who the
Julia Roberts won some awards for that.
she did, yeah.
Yeah.
And also Rosie Perez from Do the Right Thing. Can we just make this whole re-POScars
Ooh.
into supporting actor and actress?
We should give two support. Look, we're making the rules up. We give two supporting, and we don't even give a main. Like,
Yeah.
we
I
can
mean,
do it that
what about Meg Ryan from When Harry Met Sally for lead
fantastic
actress?
for Maine. Fantastic,
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, I mean, arguably the winner. Like Meg Ryan you
Yeah.
could argue Meg
In
Ryan
terms
could
of like
win that.
lasting importance in the movie canon.
Yeah. By
Yeah.
the way, Rosie Perez, what a great call.
Oh,
What a great call. Just literally just for the opening dance segment sequence, she should get best supporting just for that alone.
I mean, all right. I'm going to say we're going to give 4 best supporting actors
Yeah, we're giving them all out.
awards.
Everybody
And,
gets
yeah,
one.
everyone gets
Everybody
one.
gets one. All right, for best actor, um, here's I guess that the question should be asked: how good is Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams.
The best.
The best, right?
Yeah, the best.
I think he might be your winner.
I think
I
he's
mean,
my
it's him or
winner
Patrick Swayze from
from
Roadhouse. I mean,
Roadhouse. That's sure he's nominated, no question. But I think it's if Robin Williams is supporting for Dead Poet Society, even if he's not, I think my winner I would nominate Harrison Ford from Indiana Jones.
yeah.
I would
Oh, for
nominate
sure.
Spike Lee if he counts from Do the Right Thing.
You have to nominate Michael Keaton for
I would
Batman,
I would
right?
nominate Michael Keaton from
Yeah.
actually no. Here's a little surprise for you.
Ooh.
I would nominate Michael Keaton, but not for Batman.
Ooh.
I would nominate Michael Keaton for the movie The Dream Team, which is a incredibly underrated movie.
Very underrated.
The Dream Team is so funny. It's five guys who are in a mental institution
Yeah.
who go on a field trip with their therapist into New York City. I think it's New York City, maybe Chicago. I think it's New York City though. And their like therapist, who is wonderful, is like badly injured and I think kidnapped or something happens to him, and they have to like find him and get him back. And it is a fantastic movie. It is a
Yeah.
criminally underrated movie, and Michael Keaton's performance in that movie is bananas good. It is so good, and that movie is wonderful. It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I watched, my mom rented for me. I was like homesick from school. I never heard of it, and I watched it like 50 times. It's so good.
It's very good.
And his performance in that movie is better, in my opinion, than his performance in Batman.
I think he gets nominated for both.
Great.
I just think you dominate. But look, I don't think you can go through 1989 and not nominate Michael Keaton for Batman.
Yeah.
He changed the whole genre, right?
Yes.
Like the whole, I
Yes.
mean that, and obviously so did Burton, right? Just by directing it that way. Which leads us to director. Now, here's the thing about director. So you can talk about all these other people. The correct answer and the only answer is Spike Lee. And the correct answer and only answer in 1989 was Spike Lee. Like
Correct.
I think, like this one is almost like you just. All of these are we're looking all these years in the future and looking back and seeing what's held up and what hasn't held up. But I think this is almost like you have to right a wrong about Spike Lee now.
Yeah, no, Spike Lee's the winner going away. I would also nominate, though, Phil Alden Robinson, who directed and wrote Field of Dreams.
Yes, for sure.
Ron Howard for Parenthood, certainly.
Yes, definitely.
I think I would probably for the Ed Zwick directed Glory, and that was a hell of a thing to direct that
amazing.
movie.
Amazing.
And
I think you have to nominate Rob Reiner from When Harry.
I think Rob Reiner from When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
And I think I would probably nominate Cameron Crowe for Say Anything.
Yeah, I would do that.
Probably because that movie has lasted. So there's a lot of good nominees here, but
very good.
Come on, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean that one should have been right. And then for best movie, so we've talked about all of we should talk about the nominees. So Indiana Jones definitely gets nominated.
Agreed.
Right? I mean, no question about it. Field of Dreams definitely gets nominated.
Agreed.
And did get nominated. Here's one for you. Do you nominate Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
I personally do not. That movie, for whatever reason, is not in my didn't hit me. It did not. That is not in my canon. I don't begrudge it from being in anyone else's canon.
Yes.
It just didn't quite get me for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah. I certainly nominate Parenthood without question.
I can see anything nominated.
I could, yeah. It's not my. It's a very weird movie, but I could see that being nominated.
It could be nominated.
I would nominate. I would definitely nominate The Dream Team, and I would nominate Dead Poet Society. But again, the most important movie of that year is Do the Right Thing.
By far,
yeah.
And nothing's even close.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the rarest of I think movies in American history. I mean, there are a dozen of them, a couple of dozen of them. Important and also joyful to watch.
And also great. Yes.
Also great, right? Like important and great. Like there are plenty of important movies that you watch and like, I've seen it once. That's enough. Endlessly great. Do the Right Thing. It's just
special dispensation re-POScar.
Yes.
goes to the movie Weekend at Bernie's for being the most 80s movie that's ever existed.
It is the most 80s
It,
movie that's ever
it
existed.
is.
Yes.
It
Yes.
stars Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman, which right away you're like, perfect, perfect, and has probably the dumbest premise that's ever been a part of a
Yes.
major
Yeah.
motion
Sort of
picture. It
famously dumb.
it's a movie that that is cited in writing circles more frequently than any other movie that came out that year. Like people, you'll just hear all the time, like, "Oh, you know what they could do is like a Weekend at Bernie situation where
Yeah.
they're like,
Weekend at
blah,
Bernie's
blah."
situation.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
just absolutely has stood the test of time
Yeah.
as a movie whose premise is so stupid that it remains in the public consciousness indefinitely.
It's an astonishing thing.
Yeah.
I want to mention one other movie just because I don't really know what to make of it. It was also a very 80s movie. Did you ever see the movie Always? The Steven
Yes.
Spielberg movie Always?
I did, and when I saw it with my 8th grade girlfriend, and I had like she was like, "Let's go see this movie," and I was like, "No, I don't want to see this movie. What is this?" And then I remember like watching it and just weeping uncontrollably.
Weeping. It's so good. I remember it being so. Now I haven't seen it in whatever 25 years,
Yeah,
26 years now that since it's been out. But I remember just thinking, this is so good. Like, why is this not the movie everybody's talking about? It was
yeah.
so good. That's a young Holly Hunter in that movie. I mean, that movie is so good, so good.
Other great re-POScars special dispensation awards have to go to the following excellent 80s movies. Number
Yes,
1, Turner and Hooch.
for sure, for
Number
sure.
number 2, Dream a Little Dream, starring Corey Haim. Number
But,
3,
but wait, was it both Corys? That was just the one Corey, right?
was it Corey Haim or Corey Feldman or both Corys? It was
It
Corey
might have been
Feldman
both
and
Corys.
Corey Haim. It was both
Yeah, I
Corys.
think it was both Corys
Yeah,
in that one.
we got a double Corey situation here.
Yeah, that might be second in line for the most 80s movie ever made.
Yeah, well, except that you forgot about another movie that came out that year called Tango and Cash. And of course, Roadhouse.
Roadhouse, fantastic.
One of the great moments of the shooting of Parks and Recreation was we didn't in the episode in the debate episode when Leslie Knope was running for city council.
Yeah,
there was a subplot which was there was like a viewing party at Andy and April's house, and the they hadn't paid their cable bill and the TV went out, and so the story point was that Chris Pratt as Andy Dwyer had to entertain the people who were there to watch the debate, and he did so by just recapping the plots of various movies and acting them out. And so we just told Pratt, like, just do, like, go crazy. Like, we wrote something very brief, and then we were just like, we're just gonna roll the camera on you, just recap the entire plot of Rambo. And he did.
of Roadhouse, not
and
Rambo.
then Rambo was
Oh,
first.
he did Rambo first. Okay.
Yeah, and then we were like, what other movies do you want to recap? And he was like, Roadhouse. And we were like, great. So then he recapped all of Roadhouse, and it was truly delightful. I think we left it in, it's either in the episode itself as a
I think
tag,
it's
or
in the episode.
I think it is in the
seeing
episode. We
Roadhouse.
definitely put the whole thing online at some point. But it just him, like, from memory, just gleefully recapping the the throat ripping scene from Roadhouse. It's one of my favorite things. Bill and
So
Ted's
good.
obviously another super 80s movie.
Yes, very much.
But let's give a special re-POScars award to just the baseball movies of 1989. Major League and Field of Dreams. Just that's an incredible year for baseball movies.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's just an incredible run for baseball that year. Fantastic. And then, so I would like to nominate, and you can tell me this, as the special science award from 1989. I'd like to nominate the stapler remover as the scientific breakthrough
Sure.
of 1989. That is such a cute and delightful little device, that little stapler, the little one that you press, that you clamp on, and just make it works every time.
It is an incredibly efficient tool.
It's so efficient.
It absolutely works every time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what works? Look, staplers don't work every time, right?
Yeah.
Like staplers get jammed, but that stapler remover, every single time it works.
Yeah.
So congratulations to the person who invented the stapler remover in 1989. I don't know if that was in 1989 or not. It was probably 1912, but it doesn't matter.
Final re-POScars 1989 Special Dispensation Award goes to See No Evil, Hear No Evil, starring Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. A truly wonderful premise for a movie, which is those two guys, one of them is blind
Blind,
and one of
right?
them is deaf.
That's right.
And there is a scene in that movie where Richard Pryor, who's blind, is in a fist fight with someone, and Gene Wilder stands behind him and like tells him where to
Which,
punch,
yeah,
basically. And it is a classic 80s thing of like, let's get two of the six funniest living people
right.
into a movie, give an absolutely absurd premise, and just let them do whatever they
And
want
let
to do.
them do whatever they're going to do. Yeah, yeah. Was that movie written? Do you think, or it was basically they just read
They probably had a like general
the
outline
general
for what was
plot?
going on. I believe at one point Richard Pryor is driving a car in that
Yes, no, that's
movie.
right. And I believe being told where to
Being
go,
told where to go.
but of course he can't hear the response. So it's much mayhem. Continue. All right, time for one last meaningless thing to end this meaningless thing. And why don't you start?
I went first last time. You go first this time.
All right, I'll go first. I am realizing that there are very few excellent baseball caps in the world anymore. And I'm not talking about the quality, the look of baseball caps, the style. I'm talking about baseball caps that really feel good and fit right on your head and don't crumple up when they go on your head. And maybe this is just my head size. That's possible too. Although I've seen many other people wearing bad baseball caps. I feel like we've spent there's so much money and effort and with designers to come up with new baseball cap. I mean, obviously that's a whole industry, it's a whole thing, new baseball caps or whatever. Very little thought seems to have been put into making the caps like sort of aesthetically fit perfectly and feel right on your head and all that. And I would just challenge some of those scientists out there who are busy
Scientists, you're saying?
Yeah, no. I want scientists out there who are busy, like I don't know, curing diseases. Turn your energies to creating sort of the perfectly fitted baseball cap because I think it's a problem.
It's a huge problem that we should be focusing on. I agree.
I mean, especially today with everything going great.
Yeah.
Today is the perfect time to focus on getting a perfectly fitted baseball cap.
I like that. My one last meaningless thing is that the lighting in my office at work isn't great, and I asked a friend of mine who is a designer type person to say, like, hey, can I? What do I do? And she was like, you get some floor lamps, just put some floor lamps in the corners of your office and whatever.
Sure.
So I've been looking at floor lamps and of all different sizes and shapes, and I've come to a conclusion. I don't like floor lamps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you come to this conclusion?
Because I look at them and, some of them are $58 and some of them are $175. And I keep going, and then I realize like, I think that I don't like them because I think they're fussy. They're like, they're like they have cords that like run along the ground and you have to put them near a plug or you have to have an extension cord that runs all the way along the wall.
Yep.
And also the real thing is you never turn them on. Like you end up not ever turning them on because you're like, I don't want to turn it on. Then I'll have to turn it off at the end of the day. I just want to flip a switch and then flip the switch off when I leave. Yeah. I don't like them. I've hit a point in my life where I'm confident enough in myself and in my beliefs to declare once and for all, don't like floor lamps. Not going to use them.
Now, what about table lamps? Are you okay with those?
They're also kind of fussy.
Yeah.
But if a table lamp is like near you or like a desk lamp where you just lean over and turn it on or off, that's better.
Yeah.
But a floor lamp is like you have to make a trip over there to the
That's
corner of
true.
the
It's
room.
its own place. It's
Yeah.
like its own. So you are a ceiling lighting guy.
I'm a
That's just
very basic dude who wants to like walk into a room and flip one switch and have all the lights go on, and then
now
when I
you
leave,
can attach like floor lamps to the switch, right? Like there are ways to do
yeah,
this.
I don't know. Can you?
Yeah, you can. Pretty
But
sure you
but
can do that.
but can you? But can you really?
As long as we're talking about floor lamps, I have this issue with them as well. They all turn on differently.
Yeah.
Like when you go into a
Yes.
hotel, it's like, okay, is this the one that you twist on, like right by the? No, this is. Oh, is this the one where you have the little switch at the bottom? No, this is the one where you have to go to the
That's
plug
part.
and
That's what I'm saying. They're
yeah,
fussy. They're
they are.
fussy items, and
They are.
I just don't like them. I just don't. I don't want to deal with the fussiness of the. I forget.
And
Is it one up by the thing, or is there a cord that you have a little switchy thing
right,
on, or
the cord
do you
on the switchy, and
do you
yeah, no,
step on it? Is there like a thing on the floor that you step on? I don't know. It's just fussy. It's
no,
very
I think you're
fussy.
right. You know what? Totally, I'm totally willing to make
Can
this
we
a
say this is an
podcast
official
position.
podcast
Yeah,
position? All right,
the
great.
official podcast position. Floor lamps are fussy.
Fussy. They're just
They're
fussy,
fussy.
fussy
They're,
little items.
they're fussy little items. All right. Well, this is great. So we did not do this in this episode. We are going to pick our winners for the Team Gleason contest next week because we are going to actually not make you listen to us picking those. We're going to actually pick them in advance, but we will announce them in next week's podcast. We will announce our winners. And that'll be exciting. It'll be
Yeah.
exciting for people to see. So that's it. So Mike, as always, thank you.
Thanks for having me.